It's got to be a hard league, I think. You've got a few good teams in it, Hearts coming down, and maybe even my old team, Hibs coming down, plus Rangers obviously, so it'd be very, very good if Rangers can get up and up to the Premier League as quick as possible. Through any league, undefeated, you must play well, and I thought they played well against Dundee in the Cup. I think if they'd taken their chances early on, they might have won the game, so they could have been in the final of the Scottish Cup as well. I watched them every game at Ibrox, and a lot of the games they were good and a lot mediocre, but they still won their games, and that's the main thing. You only can beat the opposition.
Colin Stein is rightly remembered as a Rangers and Scotland legend, but behind the goals and trophies were moments of deep struggle that shaped his career. His journey was not a smooth rise to greatness, but one marked by setbacks, pain, and resilience. These lesser-known chapters add complexity to his legacy. If you enjoy deep dives into football legends and their untold stories, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more powerful football history content. One of the most devastating blows to Stein's career came through serious injury at a crucial stage of his playing life, just as he was reaching his peak. A severe ankle injury threatened to derail everything he had worked for. At a time when sports medicine was limited, recovery was long and uncertain. The injury robbed him of momentum. It also changed how he played the game. The injury didn't just affect his physical ability, it took a toll mentally as well. Stein struggled with frustration and the fear that he might never return to his best. For a player built on instinct and sharp movement, this was a crushing reality. The pressure to perform while not fully fit weighed heavily. His confidence was tested like never before. Beyond injuries, personal tragedy also shadowed parts of Stein's life. He endured heartbreaking losses off the pitch that deeply affected him emotionally. These moments rarely made headlines, but they influenced his mindset and performances. Footballers of that era were expected to cope silently. Stein carried his pain privately while continuing to play at the highest level. Disciplinary issues also emerged during moments of frustration in his career. Known for his competitive fire, Stein occasionally crossed the line. Referees and opponents took note of his intensity. While never malicious, his passion sometimes worked against him. These moments added strain to an already demanding career. The pressure of expectations at Rangers further intensified these struggles. Playing for a club where winning was mandatory left little room for vulnerability. Every mistake was magnified. Stein carried the weight of supporters' hopes week after week. Even legends were not spared criticism during difficult periods. Despite these challenges, Colin Stein's ability to persevere defined his character. He returned from setbacks, continued to score goals, and remained committed to his teams. His story is not just one of success, but of endurance. It is this human side of his career that makes his legacy even more powerful. The Ibrox disaster of 1971 stands as the most painful and emotionally complex chapter connected to Colin Stein's career, not because of any wrongdoing, but because of tragic timing. On January 2, 1971, during a fiercely contested Old Firm derby against Celtic, Stein scored a dramatic equaliser in stoppage time that sent Ibrox into a frenzy. The roar of celebration echoed around the stadium, capturing what should have been one of the proudest moments of his career. Within minutes, however, joy turned into horror as a catastrophic crush occurred on Stairway 13, claiming the lives of 66 supporters and injuring more than 200 others, forever linking Stein's goal to unimaginable tragedy. As news of the disaster spread, shock and grief engulfed Scottish football. For Stein, the emotional impact was immediate and lasting. His goal, which had kept Rangers alive in the title race, was no longer spoken of as sporting drama but as a tragic marker in history. Even though he bore no responsibility, the psychological weight of being associated with such loss stayed with him. Football, which had always been a source of pride and identity, suddenly felt overshadowed by sorrow and guilt in the years that followed. A damaging and persistent myth began to circulate around the disaster. Some claimed that fans who had already left the stadium rushed back inside after hearing the roar following Stein's equaliser, causing the fatal crush. This narrative, though later proven false, placed an unfair and painful burden on Stein. The idea that his goal might have triggered the tragedy haunted him, adding an emotional scar that went far beyond the pitch. Official inquiries eventually confirmed the truth. All supporters on Stairway 13 were moving in the same direction, and the disaster was caused by structural and crowd management failures, not by any reaction to the goal. Despite these findings, the emotional damage had already been done. Stein's name remained tragically tied to the event in the public consciousness, and no official clarification could fully erase that association. The weight of this connection stayed with him throughout his life. Alongside this tragedy, Stein's fiery temperament played a significant role in shaping both his reputation and his difficulties. He was a fiercely competitive striker who refused to be intimidated by defenders in an era known for brutal physicality. Hard tackles were common, and retaliation was often seen as part of the game. Stein's passion and refusal to back down made him effective. but it also made him vulnerable to disciplinary trouble that would repeatedly cost him and his team over the course of his career. Stein received approximately 7 or 8 red cards, many stemming from emotional reactions rather than calculated aggression. While fans admired his fight and courage, officials were less forgiving. His discipline issues reached their most painful consequence in 1969, when he was suspended, or for the Scottish Cup final against Celtic, having been sent off the previous week for what he later described as a daft kick. Stein was forced to watch from the stands as Rangers suffered a crushing 4-0 defeat, a regret that stayed with him for decades. Injuries soon added another relentless challenge to his career. By his late 20s, years of physical punishment had begun to erode his sharpness and explosiveness. Medical support at the time was limited, and players were expected to push through. Stein's once lethal movement became restricted, and his confidence suffered as his body struggled to keep pace with his ambition. When Stein returned to Rangers from Coventry City in 1975, he openly admitted he was no longer the player he once was. Persistent hamstring problems plagued him, limiting both his effectiveness and his availability. The frustration of knowing what he had been capable of, while being unable to reproduce it, took a heavy mental toll. Each appearance felt like a battle against decline rather than an expression of freedom. Fan pressure during this period further darkened his experience. Stein later spoke openly about receiving violent threats, something that deeply affected him and his family. In an era with little protection or support for players' mental well-being, these threats created an atmosphere of fear and stress. The joy of playing football slowly disappeared, replaced by anxiety and exhaustion. Ultimately, the combination of physical decline, emotional strain, and external pressure forced Stein into an early retirement at just 30 years old. For a player of his talent, this felt tragically premature. He walked away from the game not because his love had faded, but because the cost of continuing had become too high. His body and mind could no longer endure the weight placed upon them even. Before retirement, Stein's career was disrupted by a conflict behind the scenes. Despite scoring in Rangers' 1972 Cup Winners' Cup final victory in Barcelona, his relationship with manager Willie Waddell deteriorated shortly afterward. Disagreements and tension grew, leading to a shock decision that stunned supporters and altered the trajectory of his career. Stein's subsequent sale to Coventry City came while he was still at the height of his powers, making the departure even more painful. Fans struggled to understand how a player so integral to Rangers' success could be moved on so abruptly. For Stein, it marked another emotional blow in a career already shaped by hardship and loss. Taken together, these moments reveal the true depth of Colin Stein's story. His career was not defined solely by goals, medals, and legendary performances, but by resilience in the face of tragedy, regret, injury, and conflict. Beneath the headlines was a human being carrying immense emotional weight. That complexity is what makes his legacy both heartbreaking and unforgettable. Colin Stein's life and career stand as a powerful reminder that football greatness is often shaped by moments of pain as much as moments of glory. While fans remember the goals, the trophies, and the roar of Ibrox, Stein carried emotional burdens that followed him long after the final whistle. The shadow of tragedy, disciplinary regrets, and physical decline created a complex legacy that went far beyond statistics. Yet through it all, he remained deeply connected to Rangers and the supporters who admired his honesty and passion. His story shows that true legends are not defined by perfection, but by how they endure hardship. The Ibrox disaster forever linked Stein's name to one of football's darkest days, even though he bore no responsibility for the tragedy. Levine, with that association, required immense strength, and Stein faced it with quiet dignity rather than anger or denial. Combined with injuries that shortened his career and conflicts that forced painful exits, his journey reflects the unforgiving nature of football in that era. Despite everything, his contributions were never forgotten, and his importance to Rangers history remains unquestioned. Stein's legacy is one of resilience, humanity, and lasting respect. Stories like Colin Stein's remind us why football history matters beyond wins and losses. They reveal the emotional cost players pay and the sacrifices hidden behind iconic moments. If you appreciate deep, honest stories about football legends and the realities they faced, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful football histories that deserve to be remembered.
That was chopper. Look, you can see here. Actually, when the no tackling rule from behind came in 71, they had to send him to Lillishore to show him a ball. He'd never seen one, you know.
Good ding-dong battles with Jimmy, you know, very friendly, you know. So I think over the times, I think it was 19 games in all, and I think Jimmy scored once. So.
Why do you think that was? Did you intimidate him?
No, I think I must have gone to sleep that, you know, for that split second because, you know, a bit disappointed that time.
He was nuts. That's exactly what legendary footballer Jimmy Greaves said about Ron Harris, one of the most feared defenders in English football history. Known for his uncompromising style, Harris struck fear into every opponent who faced him. On the pitch, fans and players alike knew that going up against him was a test of courage and resilience. His tackles were fearless, often toe-to-toe with some of the finest strikers of his era. Today, we're going to explore the story of Ron Harris's intimidating style and why he earned such a legendary reputation. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more iconic football stories. Harris's reputation was built on decades of commitment to his teams, particularly Chelsea, where he became a club legend. His approach to defending was both physical and psychological, making strikers second-guess themselves before even touching the ball. Opponents often described him as unpredictable and ruthless, a player who combined technique with aggression. Managers knew they could rely on him to neutralize the opposition's most dangerous attackers. His presence on the field alone often altered the tactics of entire teams. Harris was the kind of defender who left a mark, both literally and figuratively, despite his fearsome reputation. Harris was respected deeply by teammates and rivals alike. His dedication, discipline, and leadership set a standard in English football. While some feared his tackles, others admired his commitment to winning every ball and every challenge. Harris understood the mental side of the game as much as the physical. Strikers often spoke of him as a player you couldn't simply outplay. You had to be prepared for a battle. His ability to read the game was almost as intimidating as his aggression. This combination made him one of the most complete defenders of his era. Harris's style reflected a different time in football, where physicality was celebrated as much as skill. Matches were often brutal, and Harris thrived in that environment. He embraced the challenge of stopping the best forwards. With a mix of intelligence and toughness, his tackling was precise but forceful, earning him a fearsome nickname among opponents. Yet beneath a hard exterior, he possessed a sharp tactical mind that often went unnoticed. His ability to control games from the back was legendary. He wasn't just a bruiser. He was a strategist in defense. Part of what made Harris so legendary was his consistency over a long career. Season after season, he demonstrated that his style was sustainable, not reckless. Injuries rarely kept him off the pitch, and his fitness allowed him to dominate machos week after week. He became a symbol of reliability for Chelsea, someone who could be trusted to give everything for the team. Fans grew to love his commitment and fearless attitude. Young defenders looked up to him as the benchmark for what it meant to be a hard man in football. His career longevity only reinforced his legendary status. The psychological impact of Harris on opposing teams cannot be overstated. Strikers often entered games already anxious about facing him. His reputation alone created hesitation, leading to mistakes or missed opportunities. He mastered the art of intimidation without crossing lines that would cost his team. Harris combined timing, positioning, and fear to dominate his opponents mentally before physically. Managers knew his presence allowed more freedom for teammates elsewhere on the pitch. This mental edge made him even more dangerous than his tackles suggested. Ultimately, Ron Harris's legacy is one of respect, fear, and admiration. He exemplified what it meant to be a tough, intelligent, and uncompromising defender. While modern football has evolved, his impact on the game remains a benchmark for hard defenders. Stories of his tackles, leadership, and influence continue to be told decades later. Harris was more than a player. He was a symbol of determination and resilience. His name still evokes awe and caution among those who understand football history. And today, we'll dive deeper into the career and controversies of the legendary Ron Harris. Ron Harris earned the nickname Chopper for his fierce, no-nonsense tackling style, a moniker that perfectly captured his reputation on the pitch. He was the embodiment of the hard-man defender, unafraid of any striker daring enough to challenge him. Harris combined timing, strength, and tactical intelligence to make his tackles both effective and intimidating. Players knew going up against him was a calculated risk. His fearsome style became a psychological weapon before it even reached the physical stage. Opponents often approached matches with a heightened sense of caution. This reputation was carefully built over years of consistent, uncompromising play. Jimmy Greaves, one of the most prolific strikers of his generation, faced Harris multiple times and famously scored against him only once in 19 encounters. Greaves described Harris as an evil git in the foreword to Harris's autobiography, highlighting the sheer psychological impact Harris had on his rivals. Even players known for skill and speed found themselves hesitant when facing him. Harris's ability to read the game allowed him to anticipate movements and shut down dangerous opportunities before they developed. His reputation alone forced strikers to alter their style. Greaves's comments illustrate that Harris's influence extended far beyond the tackle. Fear became an unspoken part of his defensive arsenal. Tommy Docherty, who managed Harris at Chelsea, purportedly encouraged him to set the tone early in games. Docherty understood that physical dominance could shape the flow of a match. By challenging opponents aggressively from the start, Harris set a psychological edge for his team. This approach forced strikers into mistakes, often giving Chelsea a strategic advantage. Harris embraced this guidance and used it to perfect his intimidating style. His manager's advice amplified his natural aggression into a tactical asset. The combination of instinct and coaching created a defender feared across the league, Eddie Gray. The Leeds United winger became a memorable opponent of Harris during the 1970 FA Cup final replay. Gray's skill and agility were legendary, yet Harris neutralized him with tactical precision and force. Harris later joked about a particularly hard tackle he made on Gray, demonstrating his flair for mixing seriousness with humor. This moment exemplified his physical approach while also highlighting his playful personality off the pitch. Fans remembered the match as a showcase of Harris's uncompromising style. Players were aware that facing him required not just skill, but nerves of steel. This match remains a key example of his defensive mastery. The general consensus among players from Harris's era was that he was a quintessential hard man. Football during the 1960s and 70s was far more physical than today, and Harris personified that toughness. Strikers understood they had to be fast, intelligent, and precise with ball control to survive his challenges. Harris's timing and anticipation made even skilled forwards vulnerable. His defensive style demanded respect, as him often led to painful consequences. Managers across the league respected his reliability and toughness. Harris's brand of football reflected a bygone era where physicality was celebrated as much as technical ability. Harris's reputation was carefully cultivated through consistency over many seasons. Unlike some players whose aggression could be reckless, Harris balanced strength with strategic intelligence. He rarely made errors that put his team at risk. Each tackle served both a defensive and psychological purpose. Opponents came to anticipate his presence before a match even began. This consistency made him one of Chelsea's most trusted defenders. His legacy of reliability reinforced his legendary status. Even though Harris's style was intimidating, he also played with tactical awareness that modern players admire. He read the game like a chess match, often positioning himself perfectly to intercept or challenge. His tackles were calculated rather than reckless, ensuring he maintained control while breaking up plays. Teammates benefited from his ability to neutralize threats before they became dangerous. Harris's intelligence on the pitch often overshadowed his physical reputation. His approach was a blend of brains and brawn. This combination made him a nightmare for forwards. Harris's influence on games extended beyond the immediate challenge. Strikers who faced him had to consider their every move carefully. Even the most confident forwards approached Chelsea matches cautiously. Harris's reputation forced opponents to play differently, often reducing their effectiveness. By controlling space and timing, he dictated the pace of the game defensively. His presence alone altered team tactics. This mental aspect of his style reinforced why he was so respected. Chelsea managers relied on Harris to lead the defensive line with authority. He wasn't just a defender, he was a figure of intimidation and control. Young defenders learned from watching him combine timing, positioning, and aggression. Harris's approach became a model for disciplined yet hard tackling. Managers knew they could trust him to handle the most dangerous strikers. His commitment to excellence and fearlessness elevated the entire team. Harris became a symbol of defensive reliability and toughness. Throughout his career, Harris's style sparked debate about the limits of physicality in football. Some criticized him for being overly aggressive, while others praised his commitment and bravery. The line between hard defending and foul play was often blurry, yet Harris mastered that balance. Referees respected his intelligence and timing. He rarely faced suspensions despite his tough approach. Harris's ability to toe the line kept him effective without derailing his team. This discipline added to his legendary aura. Harris's tackles often became memorable highlights for fans. Supporters celebrated his fearless interventions. The noise from the stands often intensified when he went in for a strong challenge. Even rival fans acknowledged his commitment and courage. His tackles symbolized the intensity of football during his era. Harris became a player whose style left lasting impressions. His physical approach was both feared and admired. Off the pitch, Harris's personality complemented his playing style. Known for wit and confidence, he balanced intensity with humor. He often joked about his own reputation, embracing the chopper. Nicknamed this combination of toughness and personality made him memorable beyond football. Fans respected him not just for skill but for character. Harris's reputation was built on performance and personality alike. His legend extended into the culture of the sport. Harris's adaptability made him effective across different opponents and eras. He could modify his approach based on the forward he faced. Against fast wingers, he relied on anticipation and positioning. Against powerful strikers, he used strength and timing. His versatility made him a complete defender. Harris understood that intimidation was part of the game. His approach was as much about brains as brawn. His leadership qualities were equally significant. Harris often guided teammates through matches with calm authority. He communicated constantly, ensuring the defensive line was coordinated. Younger players learned from his example, both in aggression and tactical awareness. His influence extended beyond personal performance. Managers relied on him as an on-field leader. Harris combined toughness with leadership seamlessly despite his fearsome reputation. Harris maintained professionalism on the pitch. He understood the rules and limits of physical play. His discipline prevented unnecessary fouls and suspensions. Harris's approach balanced aggression with respect for the game. He became a role model for defenders navigating physicality. His style proved that toughness need not compromise intelligence. This professionalism cemented his status as a Chelsea legend. Harris's career longevity reflected his effectiveness and discipline. Season after season, he maintained high standards. Injuries rarely kept him off the pitch, showing both resilience and dedication. Teammates relied on him for consistent performance. His toughness was matched by his commitment to preparation and fitness. Harris's long career reinforced the respect he commanded. He left a legacy of durability and reliability. Even decades later, Harris's style influences discussions about defending. Analysts still reference him as a benchmark for hard yet intelligent defending. Strikers from his era often share stories of fear and respect. Modern defenders study his positioning, timing, and physical courage. Harris's reputation transcends statistics and trophies. His impact is cultural as well as athletic. He represents a defining era of English football. In the end, Ron Harris was more than just a hard man. He was a symbol of dedication, intelligence, and courage in defense. His nickname Chopper reflects both fear and admiration. Every tackle, every interception, every psychological edge added to his legend. Players who faced him were forever marked by his style. Managers and teammates alike relied on his strength and leadership. Harris's legacy endures as a defining example of football's physical yet strategic era. And that is why he remains one of the most respected defenders in history. Ron Harris's legacy reminds us that football is more than skill. It is courage, intelligence, and resilience. He showed that being a defender is not just about stopping the ball but controlling the game. Every tackle he made carried both physical and psychological weight. His presence alone could alter the strategy of entire teams. Harris's commitment to excellence inspired both teammates and opponents. He became a benchmark for defenders in every generation. His story teaches that toughness and brains together create true legends. Fans still talk about Harris decades after his retirement. His nickname, Chopper, has become synonymous with fearlessness and dedication. Stories of his tackles, matches, and leadership are still shared among football enthusiasts. Young players study his approach to understand timing, positioning, and aggression. His influence extends beyond Chelsea to the culture of English football itself. Harris reminds us that respect is earned through consistency and courage. His legacy continues to inspire defenders everywhere. Harris also showed that reputation can be as powerful as skill. Players feared him not just because of his tackles, but because of his presence and intelligence. Opponents learned to respect his ability to read the game. Managers trusted him to handle the toughest forwards without supervision. Fans admired both his commitment and his personality off the pitch. His reputation became a tool as effective as any pass or intercession. His combination of respect and fear solidified his legendary status. His career is also a reminder of the evolution of football. The physical, uncompromising style of the 1960s and 70s shaped how defenders approached the game. Modern players owe much to legends like Harris for showing that aggression must meet intelligence. His techniques are studied even in today's tactical training. His career demonstrates how resilience and consistency define greatness. Harris bridged eras with style, toughness, and leadership. His story remains relevant for players and fans alike. Off the field, Harris's personality added to his legend. He balanced toughness with humor, creating a unique public persona. Fans remembered him not only for his tackles but for his wit and charm. He embraced his hard man image while showing moments of humanity. This balance made him a beloved figure among supporters and teammates. His life reminds us that legends are multidimensional. Both his play and personality continue to captivate audiences. Harris also serves as a case study in mental strength. Facing the best forwards repeatedly, he never faltered under pressure. He turned fear into a weapon, both for himself and against his opponents. This mental edge complemented his physical attributes perfectly. Managers and teammates relied on his focus and determination. Harris demonstrated that resilience and preparation are just as critical as natural talent. His career teaches that mental toughness defines true champions. Ultimately, Ron Harris will forever be remembered as one of English football's most respected defenders. His legacy is built on fear, respect, intelligence, and courage. He left a lasting mark on Chelsea, the league, and generations of players. Harris showed that hard work, discipline, and confidence create legends that endure. His story is a reminder that football greatness comes in many forms. Their name Chopper will always evoke both awe and admiration. And for fans of the beautiful game, Ron Harris will never be forgotten.
Coming back now though. Brooking. Paddon in a position to let one go, which he does well. Oh, what a goal by Graeme Paddon. Really got hold of that with his left foot, which of course is his favourite foot. And the goalkeeper really was nowhere near it. Look at this, they had a 3-2 break here. And a fine left foot. The goalkeeper may have been slightly unsighted, but he got nowhere near it.
Graeme Paddon's career is often remembered for his hard work and professionalism, but like many footballers, it also included difficult and controversial moments. While he was a respected central midfielder for Norwich City and West Ham United, his journey was not without setbacks. Injuries and isolated incidents shaped how some fans remember him. These moments did not define his entire career, but they became talking points over time. They revealed the pressures players face at the highest level. Paddon himself later reflected honestly on these experiences. His story shows that football careers are rarely perfect. One of the most painful chapters of Paddon's career involved a serious injury that disrupted his momentum. At a time when he was establishing himself, physical setbacks slowed his progress. Injuries robbed him of consistency and limited his opportunities. For a midfielder reliant on movement and stamina, this was especially damaging. The frustration of watching from the sidelines took a mental toll. It became a turning point in his professional journey. Many believe his career trajectory could have been very different without it. Injuries also affected how managers viewed his reliability. Even when fit, doubts lingered about whether he could stay healthy long-term. This uncertainty impacted selection and trust. Paddon had to fight harder than ever to prove his value. The pressure to perform immediately after returning was intense. Any dip in form was magnified. This created a cycle that was difficult to escape. Another moment that followed, Paddon was a self-admitted dive during his playing career. In an era when simulation was heavily criticized, the incident stood out. Paddon later acknowledged the mistake openly. His honesty earned some respect, but the incident still became part of his narrative. It highlighted the moral dilemmas players face under pressure. Sometimes desperation leads to poor decisions. This moment served as a personal regret he did not shy away from. The admission of the dive showed a different side of Paddon's character. Rather than denying or deflecting blame, he accepted responsibility. This openness was rare and notable. It reflected maturity and accountability. Still, football culture often remembers controversy longer than context. One mistake can overshadow many solid performances. Paddon understood this reality well. Fans and media often focus on worse moments rather than consistency. For Paddon, these moments were not about scandal but about human error and misfortune. His career was shaped by effort rather than headlines. The injury and the dive became symbolic challenges rather than defining traits. They represented the vulnerability of professional athletes. Not every story is about glory and trophies. In hindsight, Graeme Paddon's worst moments tell a deeper story. They reveal resilience in the face of physical and mental setbacks. They show accountability when mistakes are made. His career reminds us that footballers are not immune to pressure or error. Success and struggle often coexist. Paddon's journey stands as a realistic portrait of professional football. It is a story of perseverance rather than perfection. Graeme Paddon's career took a cruel turn in November 1976. Shortly after he rejoined Norwich City, just 3 games into his return, he suffered a devastating broken leg. The injury sidelined him for an entire year. At a time when he was eager to re-establish himself, the setback was heartbreaking. It halted his rhythm and momentum instantly. For any footballer, such an injury tests both body and mind. For Paddon, it became one of the most painful moments of his career. The broken leg did more than just keep him off the pitch. It forced a long and lonely rehabilitation process. Watching teammates play while he recovered was mentally exhausting. Doubts about whether he could return to his previous level lingered constantly. The injury came at an age when consistency mattered most. It reshaped how his career would progress. That single moment changed everything. Even after recovering, the shadow of the injury followed him. Match sharpness was difficult to regain after such a long absence. Managers were cautious, and opportunities became limited. Every challenge carried fear of re-injury, and Paddon had to rebuild confidence step by step. The broken leg remained a defining hardship in his story. Another controversial moment came during a fiercely contested match against Ipswich Town. In that game, Paddon attempted to win a penalty by diving. At the time, the incident sparked criticism and debate. What made it notable was his later admission. He openly acknowledged that he had simulated the foul. This honesty set him apart, but did not erase the controversy. The admission of the dive revealed the pressure players faced in heated derby matches. Emotions often ran high, and split-second decisions could haunt careers. Paddon did not hide from responsibility. Instead, he accepted criticism and spoke truthfully. While the incident damaged his image briefly, it also showed accountability. Still, it became one of his most discussed moments. Paddon also experienced heartbreak on the biggest stages. During the 1972-73 season, He was part of the Norwich City team that reached the Football League Cup final. Expectations were high, and hopes of silverware were strong. However, Norwich finished as runners-up. The defeat was deeply disappointing for the squad. Falling short at Wembley left a lasting emotional mark. Cup final losses often stay with players longer than regular defeats. For Paddon, the League Cup final represented a missed opportunity. It was a moment when glory was within reach. Losing on such a stage can define how careers are remembered. Despite his effort, the result went against him. It became another difficult chapter in his journey. Later in his career, Paddon reached another major final with West Ham United in 1976. He played in the European Cup Winners' Cup final against Ann. Once again, the stage was grand and expectations were high. West Ham entered the match with belief. However, the final ended in defeat. History repeated itself in painful fashion. The Cup Winners' Cup final was especially controversial. A disputed penalty decision went against West Ham. Many felt the call was harsh and changed the game's outcome. Paddon and his teammates were left frustrated and powerless. Losing a European final under such circumstances deepened the sense of injustice. It was a moment that lingered in memory. Despite these disappointments, Paddon remained highly respected as a footballer. He was known for his powerful left foot and long throws. His physical presence and work rate defined his midfield role. Teammates valued his reliability and strength. Even in defeat, his commitment was never questioned. His qualities made him a fan favorite. One of Paddon's proudest achievements came with West Ham in 1975. He was part of the squad that won the FA Cup. That victory stood in contrast to his later final losses. It proved he could succeed at the highest level. The medal represented a reward for years of hard work. It remains a highlight in his career. After retiring from playing, Paddon stayed connected to football. He moved into coaching and scouting roles. His knowledge of the game earned respect behind the scenes. He worked with clubs such as Portsmouth, Stoke City, Derby County, Liverpool, and Leicester City. His contribution continued away from the spotlight. Football remained central to his life. Those who worked with him spoke highly of his professionalism. He brought experience and insight to every role. His playing career shaped how he viewed talent and development. Even after setbacks, he remained dedicated to the sport. His influence extended beyond match days. He helped shape future generations. Tragedy struck on the 19th of November 2007. Graeme Paddon died suddenly of a heart attack at his home in Screpy, Norfolk. He was only 57 years old. The news shocked the football community. Tributes poured in from clubs and former teammates. His passing marked a sad end to a respected football life. His death reminded many of the fragile nature of life after football. Paddon had given decades to the game. His journey included triumph, controversy, injury, and loss. Yet he remained committed throughout. His story reflected both the highs and lows of professional sport. It resonated deeply with fans. But look at back, Paddon's worst moments were shaped by misfortune rather than failure. Injuries disrupted his path. Finals ended in disappointment. One controversial decision followed him. But these moments never erased his talent or character. They added depth to his story. Graeme Paddon's legacy is one of resilience and honesty. He faced setbacks openly and continued forward. His career was not defined by perfection but by perseverance. Football remembers him as a powerful midfielder and dedicated professional. His story remains a reminder that greatness often includes struggle, and that truth gives his career lasting meaning. Graeme Paddon's story reminds us that football careers are built on more than just trophies and highlights. Behind every appearance lies sacrifice, pain, and persistence. His setbacks never erased his commitment to the game. Instead, they revealed his strength of character. He continued to give back to football long after retirement. That dedication defines his legacy. Despite enduring injuries and controversial moments, Paddon remained respected by teammates and supporters. He never hid from his mistakes. He faced disappointment with honesty and dignity, but integrity earned admiration beyond the pitch. Few players are remembered for accountability as much as ability. Paddon was one of them. The heartbreak of losing major finals shaped him deeply. Those defeats could have broken lesser players. Instead, they strengthened his resolve. He carried those lessons into his later roles in coaching and scouting. His experiences helped guide younger players. Pain became wisdom in his journey. Paddon's sudden passing was a heavy blow to the football world. At just 57, his life ended far too early. Tributes showed how widely he was respected. Clubs, colleagues, and fans remembered his contributions. Warmly, his influence extended well beyond match days. His absence is still felt. What stands out most is how human his story feels. Success and struggle walked side by side throughout his career. He experienced glory, heartbreak, controversy, and redemption. That balance makes his story relatable. Football is richer because of figures like him. Graeme Paddon may not always be remembered in headlines, but his impact remains meaningful. He represented professionalism in difficult times. His honesty and resilience set an example. He lived the game with passion and respect. That is a legacy worth honoring. As time passes, his story continues to teach valuable lessons. Football is not just about winning. It is about character, perseverance, and contribution. Graeme Paddon embodied all three. His journey deserves to be remembered with respect, and his name remains part of football's enduring history.
There's probably something we need to clear up before we address this issue, because both of you have been criticised this week for comments you made to Graeme Le Saux during his career. Now, he said that abuse almost made him consider giving up football entirely. And Robbie, is it something you regret?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously a few years ago, obviously a lot was said on pitches, a few idiotic things, but I am genuinely sorry. You know, it was used as a bit of a wind-up mechanism. You know, looking back, you know, it's embarrassing, and you know, I am sorry. I've been in touch with Graeme. You know, I've apologised. You know, unfortunately, I can't do anything more than that, but I genuinely am sorry.
The most controversial moment involving Graeme Le Saux came during a heated Premier League clash in February 1999, when an on-pitch incident with Robbie Fowler exploded into public attention. What began as aggressive trash talk quickly crossed a line with offensive taunts aimed at Le Saux that reflected the toxic attitudes of the era. The confrontation became a symbol of how football culture then handled difference and masculinity. Although the incident lasted only moments on the pitch, its impact stretched far beyond the final whistle. The Football Association stepped in, turning the clash into a wider disciplinary and cultural issue within English football. Let me tell you something interesting about why those taunts existed and how deeply they affected him. At the time, Graeme Le Saux was unfairly labeled because he didn't fit football's narrow stereotypes. His interests, education, and outspoken views made him an easy target. Baseless rumors about his sexuality spread through terraces and dressing rooms, turning ignorance into abuse. The constant speculation took a mental toll, forcing him to carry pressure that had nothing to do with his performances on the pitch. Linked to that 1999 incident, it exposed how damaging such labeling was, not just for Le Saux but for the wider conversation about acceptance in football. The Chelsea vs Liverpool match on February 27, 1999 became one of the most controversial fixtures of the Premier League era. What should have been remembered as a competitive battle between two major clubs instead turned into a disturbing example of personal abuse on the pitch. The incident involving Graeme Le Saux and Robbie Fowler exposed uncomfortable truths about football culture at the time. It went beyond rivalry and entered deeply personal territory. Fans, media, and authorities were all forced to confront what had happened. The match result quickly became irrelevant. The behavior shown that day left a lasting mark on English football. From early in the match, Robbie Fowler appeared to single Graeme Le Saux for repeated provocation. This was not standard verbal sparring or competitive intimidation. The taunts were rooted in persistent and false rumors about Le Saux' sexuality. These rumors had followed him unfairly for years. Fowler chose to weaponize them in front of thousands of fans and live television cameras. It was a deliberate attempt to humiliate. The personal nature of the abuse made it far more serious than normal on-field trash talk. As the game progressed, Fowler's actions became more explicit and disturbing. He was caught on camera making crude gestures and miming sexual acts aimed directly at Le Saux. These gestures shocked viewers watching at home. Many immediately recognized that the line of acceptable behavior had been crossed. At the time, such conduct was often dismissed as banter. However, the public nature of the gestures made them impossible to ignore. With a moment highlighted how normalized offensive behavior had become. It forced a broader conversation beyond the pitch. For Graeme Le Saux, the situation was deeply hurtful. He was heterosexual, married, and had children, yet was being mocked for baseless rumors. The abuse struck at his identity rather than his football ability. This reflected a wider problem within football culture during the 1990s. Homophobic language and insinuations were often tolerated or overlooked. Players had little protection when targeted in this way. Speaking out was seen as weakness. Le Saux found himself isolated in a hostile environment, angered and humiliated. Le Saux approached referee Paul Durkin to report Fowler's behavior. He expected the official to intervene and restore control. Instead, no action was taken against Fowler. Even worse, Le Saux himself was booked for time wasting. This decision intensified his frustration and sense of injustice. The referee's response sent a clear message that the provocation would go unpunished. It showed how ill-equipped officials were at the time to handle such issues. The lack of support proved costly. As the match wore on, emotions boiled over. In an off-the-ball moment unseen by the officials, Le Saux retaliated. He struck Fowler with an elbow to the back of the head. It was a reaction driven by anger and humiliation rather than premeditated violence. While the act was wrong, many later argued it was understandable given the circumstances. The moment captured how prolonged provocation can lead to loss of control. Football's physical nature often masks emotional damage. This incident exposed that reality. After the final whistle, video footage brought the confrontation into full view. The Football Association launched an investigation using televised evidence. The media quickly picked up the story, sparking national debate. Questions were raised about responsibility, punishment, and player protection. Fans were divided over who was truly at fault. Some blamed Fowler's behavior, others criticized Le Saux' retaliation. The controversy dominated headlines for weeks. It became far bigger than a single match. The FA eventually charged both players with misconduct. Robbie Fowler received a 2-match ban specifically for his actions toward Le Saux. This formed part of a wider 6-match suspension. The additional punishment related to a separate incident, where Fowler mimicked sniffing cocaine during a Merseyside derby. He was also fined a then record £32,000. The severity of the fine suggested the FA recognized the seriousness of his conduct. Still, many felt it did not address the deeper issue. Graeme Le Saux was also punished for his role in the incident. He received a 1-match ban and a £5,000 fine for elbowing Fowler. While lighter than Fowler's punishment, it reinforced the idea that retaliation would not be tolerated. The ruling treated both actions as misconduct without fully addressing the provocation. This disappointed many observers. It highlighted how football authorities often focused on visible violence. Psychological abuse remained harder to punish. The imbalance frustrated players and fans alike. In the days that followed, Robbie Fowler issued a public apology. He described his behavior as a stupid thing to do. The statement was meant to close the chapter. However, Le Saux later revealed that Fowler initially treated the incident lightly. In his autobiography, Le Saux claimed Fowler viewed it as a joke. This lack of immediate accountability hurt more than the gestures themselves. It suggested a failure to understand the harm caused. The apology came too late for many. For Le Saux, the emotional impact lingered long after the ban ended. Being publicly humiliated over false rumors left lasting scars. The incident shaped how he viewed football culture and masculinity in the sport. He became more vocal later in life about inclusion and respect. The experience changed his perspective beyond football. It forced him to confront how silence enables abuse. His response became part of his legacy. The pain was real and long-lasting. The episode also forced football to look inward. It highlighted how casually offensive behavior was dismissed during that era. Players were expected to toughen up rather than speak out. Mental well-being was rarely discussed. The incident showed how words and gestures could cause deep harm. It challenged the idea that on-pitch abuse was harmless. Slowly, attitudes began to shift. But change would take years. Over time, the Le Saux Fowler incident became a reference point. It was frequently cited in discussions about respect and discrimination. Football began introducing stricter codes of conduct. Awareness around language and gestures slowly improved. While progress was uneven, the moment played a role in that evolution. It exposed uncomfortable truths that could no longer be ignored. The game was forced to learn. Painful moments often drive change. Looking back today, the incident is remembered less for shock value and more for its lessons. It represents a period when offensive behavior was normalized. It shows the cost of ignoring psychological abuse. Both players moved on with their careers, but the moment remains part of Premier League history. It serves as a reminder of how far football has come, and how far it still must go. The Graeme Le Saux and Robbie Fowler incident remains one of the most uncomfortable moments in Premier League history. It wasn't just about a foul or a ban, but about how personal attacks were once accepted as part of the game. Looking back, it reminds us that football is a human first, not just competitors. Words can leave deeper scars than tackles. This moment forced many to reconsider where the line should be drawn. For Graeme Le Saux, the episode became a defining chapter of resilience. He endured public humiliation, unfair labeling, and a lack of immediate support, yet continued his career with professionalism. Instead of letting the abuse define him, he later used his voice to challenge outdated attitudes in football. His experience helped shine a light on issues many players silently faced. In that sense, his story became bigger than football itself. Robbie Fowler's role in the incident also reflects how football culture has evolved. What was once brushed off as banter is now widely condemned. While Fowler apologized, the moment stands as a lesson in accountability. Football learned that intent does not erase impact. The incident serves as a warning about the consequences of thoughtless behavior. Growth often comes from uncomfortable truths. Today, football is far more aware of inclusion, respect, and mental well-being. Incidents like this helped push that will change forward. Governing bodies, clubs, and fans now recognize that abuse, verbal or physical, has no place in the game. Progress may be slow, but it is real. This sport is learning to protect its people, not just its image. The stories like this remind us why history matters. They show where the game has failed and how it has improved. Football is more than goals and trophies. It reflects society itself. If we understand the past, we can shape a better future for the sport we love. And that may be the most important lesson of all.